Job placement interviews at the University of Connecticut.
Learning a job where I will learn as well as fulfill the obligations to the company.
It was a very mature approach, Elliot, and I think if you have this type of outlook, you should do very well in your field. We do have a definite orientation program, shorter.
It isn't in the hands of the people. Power, is at the top. It's held by a corporate elite, and that the country is organized to protect the corporate elite.
This system cannot be tolerated and must be destroyed.
The only people who concern me, who cause me any anxiety at all, are the people who I think are in fact determined to destroy an institution. Who, it seems to me, are prepared to say that because a hospital doesn't save the life of everybody who comes into the hospital, we should burn the hospital down.
University campuses are in turmoil over issues ranging from black studies to on-campus recruiting. This is the diary of such a campus, once called Fun Farm by its president. But Fun Farm suddenly erupted in the fall of 1968. When a group of students and faculty demonstrated against on-campus recruitment by the Dow Chemical Company, whose most famous products are saran wrap and napalm. This was followed in November by the occupation of the university's executive building, including the president's office. At the end of the month, there was another confrontation with a badgeless contingent of the Connecticut State Police during a protest against recruiting by the Olin Matheson Corporation. There were 21 arrests, at least 4 injuries. As in many cases, the thrust of protest was provided by a small group of radicals, the SDS, Students for a Democratic Society. Their convictions had been forged in the crucible of the civil rights movement, tempered by the agony of Vietnam, and finally shaped and radicalized by Chicago and what they considered the failure of liberal politics. They claimed 2 adversaries, the corporate elite and the university president, Yale graduate and former government education aide Homer D. Babbidge, Jr. The action of this program centers on the collision course between the SDS and the college president during 10 days in December 1968. It starts on the evening of Sunday, December 8th. To avoid the potential of further violence, the Student Senate has just passed a resolution calling for a moratorium on recruiting. President Babbidge says he is waiting to hear from the Faculty Senate and Graduate Student Council.
I hope before I retire tonight that I will have some indication of their considered response. And since a moratorium under the operating rules of the institution, and as is implied by the resolution of this body, is a responsibility of the president, I'm going to have to make a decision on the basis of the response I receive from these 3 bodies. But I cannot at this point predict what that response is or will be.
When President Babbidge leaves, the floor is open to both moderate and radical speakers. First, Peter Rittner, a member of SDS.
Students in this school actually have anything to say about the way the school is run when it comes down to the point of being in opposition to the administration.
Kids are looking, where are they going to go for student power? There's student government, or something more radical like SDS. Now, you voted down, in the past, you voted down supposedly radical action as the things I've mentioned. The radicals supported it, and we got it. Now, what are kids going to think? If you keep voting down action like this, keep changing your mind, just because the president of the university walks in and says he doesn't like it, you're going to change your mind. I ask you, please, so I can still have some respecting you, and so I can still be proud to say that once I was a student senator, will you please be firm for once? It's not too much student power to ask for you to be able to express your own views.
Go too far. Don't go far enough. Anything you incline to be a little too tolerant,
The following morning, Monday, December 9th, the office of University President Homer D. Babbidge, Jr.
I think we're at an impasse, as far as I can see. I mean, the sentiment of the Senate resolution is clear enough, seems to me. Well, do you yourself see any advantage in seeing them? The only reason I do it is that if I don't, subsequently they'll say I was unwilling to communicate. But the fact of the matter is that they have nothing to communicate to me other than what they already have. Isn't that true? All I'm doing right now is listening, not talking.
The student delegation, including members of the SDS, are on their way, hoping to discuss the pending Tuesday recruitment with President Babbidge. He delegates the meeting to his assistant dean of men, Jack Manning.
You'll do your best. Okay.
SDS member Larry Smiley talks to the state police to seek a means of peaceful protest should Tuesday's recruiting be held.
Why not, as has been done many times before, can you not set up barricades that say police line, do not cross, and that means anybody will cross those barricades and not a cordon of police. Therefore, there would be no possibility of anyone misreading it. But, sir, I mean, like that, highly, you're saying they have to come in contact with, with a policeman. This, I think you realize, is, contributing highly to a possible cause of violence. I mean, those kids have absolutely no way of knowing when they do bump into one of your state policemen that you will not hit them. And I don't think any assurances you can give me can, tell me anything else.
That night, the SDS tunes in to a broadcast by President Babbidge to learn whether or not there will be recruiting Tuesday.
Well, at least nobody can ring this phone, so it's off the hook. As a matter of fact, I wish I were off the hook at the moment. Are we ready? A snap of the fingers will... On Sunday, the three deliberative bodies on this campus met in extraordinary session to discuss the possibility of a moratorium on our campus placement activities. Unfortunately, the results of these deliberations are contradictory. There is no clear consensus. The Student Senate re-endorsed its earlier recommendation of a moratorium on campus recruitment. The Graduate Student Council opposed a moratorium, and the Faculty Senate endorsed a statement of my own views opposing a moratorium. In the face of this divided opinion, I must act in accord with my own best judgment. I regret very much the lack of a consensus, but I conclude that a moratorium would not be in the best interests of the institution. In the meantime, interviews scheduled for Tuesday will be held. State police will be on hand to minimize the possibility of violence. An announcement of the exact location of interviews will be made available to station WHUS early Tuesday morning. I urge all those who do not have scheduled placement interviews to remain away from the site. And I urge those who cannot refrain from being at the site to limit their expression of dissent to nonviolent and non-obstructive form.
That include obscenity? That must be.
That was University President Homer D.
Thank you.
Well, I hate always to make announcements, you know. I don't, never occurred to me when I signed on to be a college president I was going to be making announcements. I thought my job was to help other people do things. To get caught in the kind of strategic relationship that we're in now with our critics is, to me, a most unhappy situation. I'm not a strategist. I wasn't trained as a strategist. I have no stomach for it. And yet, you know, it seems to be a part of a college president's job these days.
Babbidge has been exposed for what he is.
Yeah.
The faculty senate has been exposed for what it is, right? The student senate and all that business about due process has been exposed for the sham it is. That one uses the student senate when it agrees with Babbidge, and he simply overrides it when he doesn't. That's why we're gaining force. We're gaining a kind of popular front. That's important.
Later that Monday night, Assistant Professor Charles Brover addresses an SDS rally. Not all the students are members, but all are concerned about tomorrow.
A nonviolent response has certain kinds of presumptions that I don't happen to believe. It presumes, in effect, that we're dealing with moral men. Yeah? That somehow people are going to be moved by the fact that 100 or 150 beautiful people get arrested tomorrow. We're not dealing with moral men. It's like draft resistance. Remember draft resistance? How people are going to turn their draft cards, you see, and then first there were going to be 100 draft cards turned in, and then there were going to be 500, and then there were going to be 1,000, and then there were going to be 10,000, and then there were going to be 100,000. Only that ain't the way it worked, because it's finite. The number of people willing to put up anything, yeah, for what they believe in, that number is finite. On this campus it's small, and in the country it's small. We're not a majority, anything like it. Yeah. Martin Luther King said, well, they'll fill up the jail. See, first they'll fill up 10 people, they'll put 10 people in jail, and for every 10 people they put in jail, there'll be 20 to take their place, and for every 20 there'll be 200, and for 200 there'll be 2,000. It just ain't true. The choices really aren't between violence and non-violence. Yeah? That's an artificial choice perpetrated by the powerful upon the powerless. Yeah? They want you to think that what you're doing is choosing between violence and non-violence. You're choosing between various forms of violence. The ghetto is a form of violence. Yeah? What the corporate elite does to the people of this country is a kind of violence. In Guatemala, yeah, where they pay Indian peasants 30 cents a day and a pound of meat costs 40 cents a day, that's a kind of violence. Where people don't get adequate medical treatment, that's a kind of violence. Yeah? I hate to see us deluded into thinking that that we had some kind of real choice here, as much as I'd like to have that choice. Because what happens in this system is the word comes down from the top, yeah, and everybody follows. Comes right down top. There are no decisions coming from in the other direction. Okay, there are people think we can somehow get in this community what Felix Frank was fond of calling an aroused conscience by getting busted. Let's get busted. Yeah, but we're gonna learn from getting busted, and that's mostly what I care about. Thank you.
After the broadcast, President and Mrs. Babbidge entertained dinner guests. At one point, the talk is of current party games.
Well, you've seen Godfrey Cambridge's game. I think it's called Ghetto. It's a similar principle. And you start out in a ghetto, Watts or Harlem or someplace where you aspire to get to be President of the United States. Oh. It's a very similar format and sort of tongue-in-cheek.
You don't aspire to get busted.
No, the idea of protest, you can choose to protest on the college campus, or you can choose to protest before the state welfare department, or you can choose to protest.
much for attention, and we will now read the Riot Act. I charge and command all persons assembled to immediately disperse and peaceably depart to your habitations or to your lawful business on the penalty of the law.
Any of these men with sticks. Do not listen to reporters who may intimidate you.
By the authority of the state of Connecticut, I charge and command all persons assembled immediately to disperse and peaceably to depart to their habitations or to their lawful business on the penalty of the law.
There are certain people that wish to be arrested non-violently, just as a symbolic gesture. Okay, let's form a no man's land again.
I'm a very gentle person.
Well, you'll have to be a little more.
What about crying? Is wedging illegal?
You just wedge yourself. Anything you want to do.
I would like to be non-violently arrested. I'm violating the law now. I'm meeting against the commissioner or something. Isn't that violation of some law? Touching police people?
We are here in large numbers to do what is required to...
Professor Jack Torkelson of the Economics Department.
Totally against what is going on here today and what has been going on. I'm a member of the faculty, and I wish to make my role here as plain as possible.
As the afternoon wears on, 67 moderate students and faculty members not belonging to SDS will be arrested on charges of breach of the peace.
I have seen bad faith been demonstrated. Now we know Colonel Williams promised that the riot act wasn't read, and we know that Commissioner Kamoke, he was there. He will take the responsibility for that. They have all their kinds of ways of taking care of things like that. President Babbidge will, of course, say he had no idea that that was going to happen. I personally don't believe that.
Explained to someone this morning. Bob is our man who's there to see that the interviews are carried on. But in every other respect, the situation's in the hands of the police commissioner. And this is what I think so many people in the university community don't really appreciate, is that if it's necessary to call in civil authorities to conduct the affairs of the institution, you surrender something of the institution's autonomy.
Right time,
Yet, assuming the worst, has the infirmary been alerted? I assume they're conscious of what may be.
Sure they are. Everybody else seems to be. People have called me all day, I'm told, to say, will Mr. Gant be able to make his appointment? Did I ever tell you about going out raising funds for Vanderbilt?
Our most militant critics, on the one hand, say we should abolish the Board of Trustees. We should be governed by students and faculty. At the other extreme, you hear people saying, well, we don't want to abolish the Board of Trustees, but we want to pass laws that limit their authority. It just seems to me that any effort to delimit the degree of trust that's placed in our Board of Trustees is a tragedy for education. I think the people who are assaulting it from either extreme are being very unwise.
About 100. And it's mixed. It's a mixed bag of it. You mean there is a crowd there now? I asked Jack Manning to make a real strong plea to the student senators to remove themselves from an area if there are large groups coming in, because I just don't want them to get into any trouble at all.
Yes.
He's going out to urge them to do that, I believe.
Ed.
Hold on.
Tell them, please, to meet me somewhere.
Yeah. Yes, the president points out that, if they are really inclined to remain, that we would like to meet them somewhere, as opposed to their remaining behind and innocently
I'll meet them in center field.
being involved in something. I really don't know if this other group on the way has anything more in mind.
Hey, step back. Getting too close to here.
No, traditionally we put up signs, don't walk on the grass, and give out parking tickets.
That's about as much experience as we've had.
And we haven't done that very well if you look at the past. Our record in both areas is very poor.
Your grass isn't growing and your parking is awful.
We're just not a law enforcement agency. We're not very good at it.
Wouldn't it be nice to get back to arguing about parking, walk down the grass?
We go to Gulley Hall, we go to the Rock, we got a few announcements to make about what we're going to do, suggestions, okay? So let's go to Gulley Hall.
Reggie Savage and his fellow SDS members have decided not to add new legal problems by being arrested today. The same old sense of outrage prevails, however.
That the riot act wouldn't be read. It was read. We weren't allowed to even peaceably protest this university's recruitment policies. So I say right now, since we can't get in the building, let's picket the damn place.
There's something very important to all of you people who haven't been with us before, who were there today. There should be absolutely no question in your mind what's on there. This campus should not be ignorant of what's going on. We should not allow any more that Babbidge and his administration twist and turn the events this day. Everyone here to make sure that other people on this campus know exactly what went on. Because it could happen to you tomorrow.
Friends, I'm very disappointed that we were not given a chance by Commissioner Mulcahy and the officers to demonstrate peaceably. I think technically I and you are still breaking the law because we're on the university campus. We have not dispersed to our places of work or our homes, so we may be liable to arrest.
Can I say something to that? Okay, it is a question of principle, and we have the right to peacefully assemble and protest and address our grievances before those who we want to change the rules. Okay, Mr. Hausman has told you that we are all subject to arrest, but I say we've got to stick by those principles and stay here and picket, and if they're going to come here and arrest us, then we know damn well that the Constitution of the United States is...
What they did over there was a direct violation of a right to peaceful...
Yeah, they just busted Torkelson, Leicester, all those people. You know, all the manufacturers. Looks like about 100, and they're all going in. It's like going in. It looks like Dachau going in to take showers.
But for most of the 12,000 undergraduates, campus revolution is a spectator sport.
Back to those guys. They're just doing their job.
Come on, baby. Come on.
We were on our way.
One student senator claims SDS has taken action into its own hands.
We are a legitimate body. We are your body. We are at the same end you are. Ask Larry was in the meeting just now.
I can't answer all
If you're going to be a bandit group and a bandit group of students, you've got to stand behind the students who can speak for you. And if you're not a student, now do what the hell out of...
Wait a minute! I object to being called a bandit! I know that President Babbidge promised that when we would arrive at the skating rink, that the riot act would not be read. It was read. I say we sit here non-violently that President Babbidge will not let us demonstrate non-violently. And as far as I'm concerned, at this point, President Babbidge is completely discredited.
They really think that I ordered them to read the riot act?
You can say that, yeah. This kind of question, for example,
Later that Tuesday, President Babbidge and his aides try to measure the day's events.
Max, what kind of reaction have you had? Same sort of...
Well, from one, mainly from one very representative member of the faculty who was there as a demonstrator privately and who felt that because the riot act had been read prematurely, his liberties were abridged, and we should therefore, for the fourth time, I believe, call a moratorium on recruiting.
This was how it went. Jack, in a community other than a university community, if a group of people assemble in this fashion, are they subject to an order to disperse?
Oh, they certainly are. In fact, I think they'd be arrested without even bothering with the order in an ordinary community. I mean, if this happened on the main street of Hartford, and a policeman were subjected to this type of abuse, I mean, they just wouldn't take it.
Was it verbal abuse?
Oh, there's always verbal abuse. I can't speak today because I didn't hear it.
Not noticeably today. I think it's a great mistake to say that today was...
Well, that's what I said. I didn't hear it today.
What has been going on here.
But I think the president was talking generally, and generally, if this happened anywhere but a college campus, there just wouldn't be any discussion about it.
See, this it seems to me is the really critically important point to get across to our colleagues, is that we have for centuries in institutions like this enjoyed a degree of immunity from civil procedure because the assumption went public that we would somehow or other govern ourselves, maintain our own form of law and order. And this included lots of gatherings and demonstrations and so forth. But the minute you call in civil authorities to maintain order on the campus, you begin to live like people live in the rest of the world, and it's not the way we want to live on a college campus. One of the delicious ironies of the situation is that if we had declared a moratorium, we would have had to keep the Peace Corps away for 3 days, which would have put us in a pretty posture with our idealistic students. But they were recruiting in the student union. Have you heard whether...
take place as Associate Professor David Colfax and the SDS confront Peace Corps recruiters.
Request. Why would you decide not to honor the Student Senate's resolution?
What we were concerned about was having that same group of people that we were talking to yesterday, that we could talk to them again this morning and at the same time give our statement that we have discussed and have had a, rational discussion about making that decision.
Mr. Manning and his associates have thrown out the president of SDS. He's been expelled from school, suspended. And since we talked to you yesterday afternoon, it's just some things have changed in that particular group. They're not really too interested in trying to discuss issues with people such as you who are here sponsored by Mr. Manning and his colleagues, to use those terms. The crowd gathered here right now, Mr. Manning will be here with his list. You see, turning over names to the Student Conduct Committee and throwing out some more people. That's why they're not here this morning. They know now how Mr. Manning functions.
It's categorically not true.
Of course not, Mr. Manning. And this is precisely...
Give him a chance to explain his
Mr. Manning has a form that he exercises quite regularly.
We all have our own forms, I think.
Right. And the only question I'm asking here is, are you making a statement to the effect you're not going to remain, or...
We feel that our presence at the University of Connecticut at this time is not conducive to open dialogue between ourselves and students interested in the Peace Corps, and can be potentially harmful to the discussions that are going on within the university community. We hope that we will be able to return to Storrs in the near future, and in the meantime, when desiring information about service as a Peace Corps volunteer will visit our office in Hartford. Copies of this are available.
Would you have normally left today?
Please take a copy.
So it won't be out of context.
We do ask everyone to quote us in context.
The two
what they're arguing is being infringed upon, but we're not arguing that we want them to stop their education, but don't try to stop ours, which you're doing right now. By cutting off our lifelines, by cutting off classrooms, they're stopping 13,000 other people from getting an education. It's just not right. This afternoon, the people are going to show that. I think they will.
As most of you know, you have a lot of contact back home, and that's the main reason for this gathering. We want to inform a lot of the people in the state and around the nation that the University of Connecticut will not follow a small radical minority in the ruling of this campus.
Listen, you're not listening to both sides.
Everybody has a chance to speak.
No, they're not. We have asked to speak.
Everyone has a chance to speak. You're allowed to go to CS meetings and speak. You never talk.
Nobody ever does anything.
Suspend those arrests. Right. They estimate that we have a crowd of approximately 1,200 people here. If that isn't a mandate for continuing the policies that we've had on this campus, then I don't know what is. I think we've given the news media what they've asked for today.
We believe that the majority of students at this university oppose the tactics of the minority. We wish for all to know that this minority is strictly such. They are but a handful and do not command significant support.
Up against the wall, then we have no other alternative. There's nothing else we can do. If these professors want to hold out on grades, if you want to do this other stuff, this is fine. This doesn't do a thing for Richie. It doesn't do a thing for the movement. All we've got right now is for the strike.
Look, 100 of us were at the Dow demonstration. Some of those people are here. Rich Savage was among those 100 people. I was there as well. Now they're going to throw Rich Savage out. Now, what it means is this. I've got to make it very clear that they can't throw Rich Savage out without throwing me out. Now, because that's what it's going to come down to. And what you've got to think about, you see, is whether when they throw Rich out and me out and Colfax out and Leggett out, whether they can throw us out without throwing you out.
I think after we finish here, perhaps some of us who are better, I am not, this is just suggestion, in a strategy should get together, because I don't know, maybe here are some agents or whatever happens, but I think there is an end to talking, ladies and gentlemen. I will end with this, that there were 67 people sitting there. I myself, I didn't sit there because I was afraid to lose my NDEA loan, because I have a wife and because I have a kids. And this has been constant, this has been going for years. I tell you, this is the end. If it's tonight, I'm going there and they can grab me right away and I'll go very gladly.
That kind of decisiveness on the part of that individual gives me the impulse to call for a strike at this moment, to be effective on Monday.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
This is in favor of a student strike. All right. All those opposed?
Right.
All those opposed? I think it carries pretty clearly.
Using the prime factor.
But it is still some 200 activists trying to radicalize a student body of 12,000. And so for most of the campus, it is classes as usual.
Spiritually distinguishing them in this transcendental ethic is nothing.
And corporation recruiting as usual.
Well, you know, the Christmas holidays, as we talk right now, are only 6 days away. And to be perfectly candid with you, my hope is that we can keep the lid on until the Christmas holidays arrive. We have then 2 weeks of vacation. We have 1 more week of classes, examinations, another vacation between semesters, and hopefully in 6 weeks of a scheduled moratorium, a lot of people are going to collect their wits. Calm down. Start to think again. A little more logic, a little more argument, a little less rhetoric, a little less posturing. I'm hoping very much to keep the lid on for another week.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. For one quarter, we'll give you all the... You Alfred Cleaver! We'll show you the books and statements. You can read all these wonderful things at our university. We present this university on your behalf, for your benefit. You pay your money, and you come in here, and you read, and you'll be able to put your head away forever. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't question, don't...
As part of the strike strategy, SDS members address various classes to explain their point of view. Student Ed Van.
So we thought it was important, more important for us, to point out to people that Dow, and not just Dow, but all the corporations in America, participate in a system that is oppressing people around the world and oppressing people right here in America. And I'm talking about people like the blacks, the migrant workers, the miners in the South. I saw some of those miners this summer, and they're living in miserable conditions. So like I said, it was a matter of priorities. That's why we went in. That's why we interrupted Dow. We said, sure, we're interrupting their civil liberties, their civil privilege to have an interview, but this country is interrupting the civil rights of people in Vietnam to live, to have an existence. And we thought that that was more important than someone's civil liberty to have an interview. But if we were in a society that was moral, if we were in a society where all people had civil rights and civil liberties, if we were in a world where all people had civil liberties, then I would say nobody should violate your civil liberties at all. But when you're living in a society that's corrupt, that's amoral, that exists to make profit, that puts one man against another man and calls it motivation, then there's no right to respect one type of civil liberty. People like to call us communists and say we're a bunch of reds, because then they don't have to deal with our politics. You see, that just can't, they call umpires communists too. Then they don't have to deal with us if they just say you're communist. But the communists are not the people to be worried about in this world right now, because the communists are just another form of imperialism. The communists are imperialists just like the United States are imperialists. There are varying degrees and varying types of communism. Communism in Vietnam may be totally different and will be, I can assure you, totally different than communism in Russia. Okay? So we're not for the communists taking over the world. But what I'm saying is that the United States and Russia are in this conflict, and they're screwing everybody in the world because of this conflict, just to help their own countries, to help themselves. And not even their countries, to help an elite in that country.
You seem to think that everyone who goes through high school and then doesn't join SDS doesn't read books or something.
No, that's not true, man, because I went through high school.
It's not true. I think for myself. I don't get these opinions because some teacher told me they were supposed to be my opinion.
What you're saying right now shows me that you're ignorant of what it means to be socialized, to be put into a system. You see, the system has affected me. It's warped a lot of my thinking. It's created a lot of anxieties in me. There's certain things I can't do, like I don't like to say certain words because it makes me turn red every once in a while, and things like that. The thing you have to try to do is first recognize that it doesn't matter what society you live in. That society determines your morality, what you think, the ideas that you're brought up with all your life. The time is now, man. The time is now to say, well, maybe some of those things aren't right, and let's look around and see what the truth is.
My sympathy for the strike, I'm not going to have a class on Wednesday. There will be no class on Wednesday.
Now, what do we...
let's get one thing straight before we go in there. Are we going to go in there and leave when they ask us to leave, or are we going to go in there and
No, we're going to go in there. We're going to sit down and just sit down and stay there.
Okay. Now, some of those people that were doing the talking, do it today. Do it now. All right, let's go.
Yeah, don't let him count you out.
Everybody's going to talk.
We're here to tell you about what's going on and to tell you that Rich Savage has been singled out of 100 people and suspended from the university. And some of you can clap now. Some of you may not like Rich Savage. Some of you may not like SDS. But you can't say that you like the idea of a person being singled out from 100 people who did the same action that he did and punished for that action.
The problem is that the university has decided anyone who's going to use their right to freedom of speech is going to get bumped out of school, you see.
Well, that's your interpretation. Let's just get out of here. Get out of here. We don't want you around here.
We're taxpayers just as much as you are.
Yeah, so are we. We'd like to have our legs.
Why was the professor...
We don't have our democratic rights guaranteed.
Why wasn't he getting kicked out? You're not giving that the choice.
How can you put yourself to do?
You know what a student is?
I decide what courses I want to take. That's my right. Therefore, I decide also that we don't want you here, so just get out.
About what's been going on and what's been happening to our people, because the news that's been coming out has been distorted. And it's...
Sir, let me point out to you that before coming to this class, I read 13 pages of what you put out. And I therefore feel myself quite well informed. I think most students have received this or similar information.
What's the ask how many you've read?
This
isn't the kind of the place.
All right.
And we're saying maybe, you could use that money or that education for other reasons.
I do, and I do it on other time. I was there last night, I was there the night before. But don't tell me that during my classes, when I came here to listen to someone who has a PhD or a master's or something, tell me about a special subject, that I can't learn about something else.
Yeah, but what we're saying is that you have very little choice over who you're going to listen to and who you're going to be taught by. That's one of the things we're trying to say.
All right, then please, because maybe I don't even want to listen. Wait a minute.
Not a question, but I'm a senior and I'm using the placement office, and I want to know why you think you have the right to interfere in my getting to a placement interview.
I wouldn't allow a Ku Klux Klan meeting to go on in my house in Enfield from where I live. I feel as long as you let it happen in your own home, then that's kind of a way of condoning it. The same thing if you allowed wiretapping. It's just you're condoning the idea. And I feel, sure, kids want to recruit, but if they want to, get off campus. This is my home, just like it's your home, and I don't feel that you should infringe on certain of those happenings.
Well,
yes.
Why should you have them off? That's for you. Why can't I have them on? That's for me.
See, this is the whole compromise. That's the only answer.
So I'm supposed to compromise.
Well, no law is just if it affects a majority while a minority is still impaired. You can't infringe on some people's rights. They have to appeal to everyone.
It makes it right if the majority is infringed upon for the minority's will.
No, they wouldn't be infringed. I'm not stopping their recruiting. A half a mile off campus isn't that much. It's just that I want recruiting out of my house.
Well, I live here too. I want it in my house.
By Tuesday, the 9th day of the revolution, the strike collapses. While Connecticut plays Massachusetts, The SDS discusses the future of the movement.
There's two things we ought to consider really seriously. That is, one thing is the direction of SDS, and the second thing is the leadership of SDS.
Let him take the point, you speak of the inside. Run two for a while now. Out there goes 23 now. 25. We got him.
The recruitment issue is through. Do you want to just disband? On one extreme. And the second extreme is, are you working on a movement that 10 or 20 years from now will climax? All right?
That is going to climax in April with the shutdown of the university.
I think, like, if we start demanding things like 1,000 black students before next year, and 500 Puerto Rican students as opposed to the 4 we have now, we have 4, and we not only have like a real issue that appeals to everybody.
Important thing to point out is where his interests are. Right. See, it's not enough to see Babbidge, the man, the father figure, right? You've got to point to the fact that he sits on 5 corporation boards of directors, including Cayman Industries, et cetera, Hartford National Bank, which is an interlocking director with United Aircraft. That's the kind of stuff we have to hit. We've got to build. Seems what we ought to be doing is building anti-capitalist content into this popular right.
Finally, revolution gives way to Christmas recess. There are strong reactions from some parents.
I don't think every parent in Connecticut is ultra-conservative. I think we want to feel that our students have a right, our children have a right to express freely their opinions. I think that's what this country is based on.
Well, actually, I'm not in favor of it.
Can you tell me why?
I'm paying for a kid's education. I want them to get the same. And I don't want to see the disruptions that go on all the while.
What are they demonstrating against? I mean, they're going to I feel they're going to a school that's offering them an education. It's offering them advantages that most of their parents didn't have. They have a right to object in certain situations, but I don't think that forceful demonstration is a means to an end.
Can't see it. Can't see it? No, sir. Can you tell me why? Why? Yeah. Well, I think you're up here for an education, right? Yeah. So what's the purpose of the strike? I see. Well, do you approve of this, the educational system here? Well, I don't know yet. I'll let you know in a year.
If it wasn't for my parents at this particular time, and though sometimes I fail to express this to them, I probably would have really gotten keeled over. Not only just in the material sense, but just in terms of support, because I know a lot of kids right now are so-called, as the psychiatrists would say, alienated from their parents, mad with their parents. A lot of the kids up here have had a lot of hassles with their parents, cut off funds, we don't want to see you, don't do that again. But I've gotten great support. In fact, they went to Babbidge and spoke to him in my behalf.
My father's dead. My mother kind of just wants me to make it, should we say, and she realizes I'm not going to make it this way. She realizes things are wrong, but she's like first generation here. She feels that America's, with even its faults, is still like the best place on earth, and that whole bag. So
She's, worried about a lot of things, too. She's worried I'm not going to get through with school, which, is her dream, that, all her boys go to college and become doctors, I guess.
Part of being a man, in 1969, I think, in America, is to be able to take some risks. And I don't feel the risk is so great when measured against the kinds of crime being committed by this country, kinds of exploitation of people all over the world. We measure it against, say, the abscesses in the face of a napalm child.
The deeper you get in, the more you realize that the system is not going to bend. It's not flexible. It will only, bend to a certain point, and then it comes down hard. And so, I think you're not going to accomplish it through the ballot box, and you're not going to accomplish it through changing people's minds for the even very simple reason you don't have access to their minds. Through the media, through just talking to them. They're not interested. So I guess you decide to say you pick up a gun and start changing it.
I hate to think that democracy is a failure. I can't bring myself to believe it. I think we just have to work a hell of a lot harder at it than we've been inclined to in the past. We've taken it for granted that we had such a stable, such a sensible form of government that nobody in his right mind was going to set out to destroy it.
But when we came in September, the kids on this campus thought that Homer Babbidge was, he was there and was in power because of his human relations techniques, of course. And then they bring on 200 state police, onto the campus. And it turns out that what he's propped up by is power.
I must compromise at times. I must take into account a wide range of opinions, trying to represent the best interests of the institution. That to impose upon the institution my own personal conviction would be dishonest. Well, worse than that. It would be, I shouldn't have said dishonest. Imposing my own personal views on this institution and its policies would be an act of arrogance. So I have to stop short of arrogance in the interest of the institution.
December 18th. The lid has been kept on. On the opening agenda of the meeting of the Board of Trustees are items concerning the usual interests of the institution. First, a report from the provost.
Our program in demography and human ecology, one in molecular zoology and medical sciences, one in anthropology, and one in remarkable.
Under the agreement, the research...
Then how profits from university research would be split.
The university will receive 28.75%, and each of the two professors will receive 14.375%.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Later, what to do about a piece of donated sculpture.
Our art gallery, is that the...
Yes.
6 foot high?
Meeting. Most of it.
Finally, the 10 days in December are taken up by the board and its chairman, John J. Budd of the Travelers Insurance Company.
And viewed TV films of campus disturbances. Now, I'd like again to compliment Dr. Babbidge for the excellent judgment and diplomacy which he displayed, as well as for his vigor, his persistence, and his tireless efforts to attempt to meet so many representatives of the academic community in a sincere effort to resolve a series of very, very trying problems. On the other hand, we all regret the indignities to which he has been subjected and the discomforts and inconveniences imposed upon him and on his family.
Let me just say, Mr. Chairman, that I appreciate very much the sentiment, and if I thought the board did not support me in these matters, I'd raise some question about it. But I think under the circumstances, I would recommend against any formal endorsement of the President's activities. I think it's unnecessary. I appreciate the sentiment greatly, but I don't think it's appropriate to try and harden lines here.
We're not opposed to any change which will improve this institution. And as President Babbidge has so often remarked, the only rule that cannot be changed here at the University of Connecticut is the rule of reason.
Since this program was filmed, there have been further protests and arrests. The university has fired one activist professor. told Professors Brover and Colfax their contracts will be terminated in June 1970, despite a recommendation of tenure from Colfax's department, and brought charges against another faculty member which could subject him to 5 years imprisonment. The dissenters say they will now take their case to the community and seek an alliance with black students. What of the future for the campus once called Fun Farm? President Babbidge.
I think what's going on here is symptomatic of basic problems within our society at large. I think probably we're in for a fairly long siege.